If a war breaks out in Europe tomorrow, the first tanks moving won't come from Berlin or Paris. They'll come from Poland. Warsaw is now spending 4.8% of its entire economy on its military, the highest ratio in NATO, to defend a 60-mile strip of land most people couldn't find on a map. It's called the Suwałki Gap, a narrow corridor trapped between a Russian missile fortress to the north and a heavy militarized Belarus to the south. A pincer closed that gap, and NATO's eastern flank is cut off almost overnight. Poland isn't just rearming, it's preparing for that exact scenario. Because right now, the center of military power in Europe is starting to move east, and it's happening faster than most people realize. Now, at first glance, the Suwałki Gap doesn't look like much. Forests, hills, borderland. But it's the only land connection between NATO's core and the Baltic states. No gap, no reinforcement. So here's the question. If this has always been a vulnerability, why is Poland acting like the clock just started ticking? Because the assumptions changed. For decades, NATO relied on something called tripwire defense. The idea was simple. If Russia attacked, smaller forward units would slow them down and reinforcements would arrive later. But recent conflicts showed something uncomfortable. You don't always get that time. Lose ground early and you may not get it back. Poland looked at that model and rejected it completely. Instead, they shifted to forward defense. Stop the attack immediately. At the border, no fallback. But how do you actually hold a line like that? You build an army designed to win on day one, and Poland is doing it at a scale Europe hasn't seen in decades. Its military budget has nearly quadrupled in just a few years, but more importantly, its buying speed. Hundreds of tanks, thousands of armored vehicles, layered air defense, long-range strike systems. Poland has ordered around 1,000 K2 tanks, hundreds of Abrams, and massive artillery systems. Enough that by the end of the decade, it could field more modern tanks than the UK, Germany, France, and Italy combined. That isn't just a statistic, it's a structural reset of the continent. So again, the question shifts. Why move this fast? Why take on this level of cost? Because Poland doesn't see this as a distant risk. It sees it as a near-term reality. And that mindset changes everything. Over 80% of the population supports increased defense spending, even at nearly 5% of GDP. Now that kind of alignment is rare. It gives the government room to move quickly, to borrow, to build, to prepare. And while much of Western Europe still debates timelines, Poland is acting on urgency. But here's where things get even more interesting. Close the Suwałki Gap, and NATO's eastern flank is isolated overnight. This is why geography is the ultimate leverage. While headlines focus on politics in Brussels, the real balance of power is shaped by choke points like this. If you want to understand the maps that actually decide outcomes, this is what we track, because the balance of power isn't static, it's moving. Now, back to Poland, because this isn't just about buying weapons, it's about building an ecosystem. And while most countries import military hardware, Poland is trying to produce it. Its deals with South Korea don't just deliver tanks, they bring manufacturing, technology transfer, and domestic production lines. The goal is simple: turn Poland into the industrial backbone of NATO's eastern flank, not just a defender, a supplier. If Poland becomes the primary military hub in the east, what happens to the rest of Europe? So right now, Europe is splitting into two speeds. Western powers like Germany and France are still rebuilding capacity, more cautious, more gradual. Poland is accelerating, fast. That gap in urgency is creating a shift, a quiet one, but a real one. Military weight is moving eastward toward the countries closest to the threat, and that changes alliance dynamics. Because NATO only works smoothly when everyone shares the same timeline. And right now, they don't. And there's another layer most people miss: logistics. Wars aren't just fought with tanks, they're sustained with supply chains, fuel, ammunition, reinforcements. And in 2026, Poland has become the central hub for all of it. Key transport routes, air bases, and infrastructure now funnel military support through Polish territory. If Poland holds, the system holds. If it doesn't, everything behind it becomes harder to sustain. So now we come back to the core question. Why is Poland rearming faster than Europe? Because of geography, timing, and proximity. Countries closest to risk don't have the luxury of waiting. They move first, they spend first, they prepare first. Poland isn't trying to lead Europe, it's reacting to where it sits on the map. But this comes with trade-offs. This level of military expansion isn't free. Poland is funding much of it through long-term borrowing. Future growth will have to justify today's spending. If the economy slows, the pressure builds. Defense versus domestic priorities, security versus stability. There's uncertainty here, real uncertainty. And that makes this more than just a military story. It's an economic gamble as well. So, is Poland becoming Europe's new military centre of gravity? Increasingly, yes. Not because it set out to dominate, but because geography forced its hand. And now it's moving faster than everyone else. But here's the bigger implication. If one narrow corridor can reshape an entire continent's military strategy, how many other pressure points are quietly shaping the world right now? Because Poland is fixing its geography with tanks, other countries are doing it differently. With resources, with trade routes, with leverage most people never see. And if you want to understand how that plays out beyond Europe, how countries use things like critical minerals to influence entire industries, watch the breakdown on Indonesia and the global battle over nickel. Because power isn't just built with armies. Sometimes it starts underground.